In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make a giant granny square or an infinity granny square with colour changes, which you can use to make a beautiful blanket. This is my mermaid shells blanket. I shall leave a link in the description to the PDF pattern if you want to go ahead and get that. But this is such a versatile pattern because you can use as few or as many colours as you like. You can change colours every row, every 2 rows, every 5, however many you wish. And you can also experiment with changing colours at different times as well. For example, you would have one colour, do a block of 3 in another colour and then one colour again. The possibilities are endless with this giant granny square. So I'm going to show you the techniques and also how to add the border. You are going to need your selected yarn. I'm using Caron Simply Soft in these 5 colours. I'll leave the information in the description box. I am using a 5mm crochet hook, but of course you can use whichever hook size is recommended with your yarn. And then you will also need a pair of scissors and a darning needle for sewing in your ends. Okay, let's get started. So before we dive in, I just want to talk about the construction of this granny square. This is going to be slightly different to what I teach in my Absolute Beginners Granny Square video. And I just want to point out that neither way is incorrect. A lot of things with granny squares is down to personal preference. However, for this particular granny square, because we're changing colours, we are going to be turning our work, which is something that I don't teach in the Absolutely Beginners Granny Square. And also what this will do is it will actually prevent the centre of your granny square from twisting. So if you see that in your work, then this is going to help that. We're also going to be doing something slightly different when we're working between these granny sets and also in the corners. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the video. But go ahead and grab your first colour and let's make this round one. So to begin this blanket, we are going to first of all start off by working a magic ring or a magic circle, as it's also known. But if you really don't like a magic circle, you can go ahead and create your slip knots, insert your crochet hook, chain 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then insert your hook into that very first stitch and yarn over, pull through to create your circle in this way. However, that's going to leave a little gap right in the center circle. So instead, I'm going to work a magic ring. So we're going to lay the tail end of the yarn over my finger and then wrap the yarn around to create an X. I'm going to go under that first loop and pull the working yarn through and then twist the hook. Go ahead and grab the working yarn and yarn over, pull through to create your first chain. And there we have our magic ring. So we've already done one chain. We're going to start our row 1 now. And that begins with a chain 3. So we've done one chain, we go 2 and 3. And this chain here is going to count as a treble crochet. Now remember, I'm working in UK terms, so in the US this is known as a double crochet. We're then going to work 2 more treble crochets to create our first granny set. So again, a treble crochet is a UK term. In the US this is a double crochet. We're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that center circle, yarn over, pull through. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through those first 2 loops. You'll have 2 loops on your hook. And then yarn over, pull through 2 loops. That is a treble. And we'll go again, yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So now we have our 3 trebles, because this first one is counted as a treble, and that creates our first granny set. We're now going to create our corner, and we're going to do that by chaining 2, 1 and 2. And then we're going to create another granny set. So we're going to yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first treble crochet. And then we're going to do another treble crochet and another treble crochet to create our 3 trebles for our granny set. Now, if you feel like you are going to get confused with the corners, I would recommend putting a stitch marker in this chain 2 space, but this chain 2 space has created our corner. We're now also going to do another corner. So we chain 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to work another granny set, which is 3 treble crochets. So yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's 1 and 2 and 3. So we have 2 corners and 3 granny sets. We're going to chain 2 for our 3rd corner, and then we're going to create another granny set. So 3 treble crochets into that center circle, 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to pull the center circle close, so pull in on the tail end. And that just helps us to see where we're at in terms of our square. So we have 4 granny sets, which are the sides of our square. And then so far we have 1, 2, 3 corners. So that's these chain 2 spaces here. We're going to do our last corner, so chain 2, 1 and 2. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 from the beginning. So into that chain, yarn over, pull through and pull through. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through. We're going to snip off our yarn. And then we're going to pull out our hook. And there we have our round 1. So I'm just going to give that tail end of the center circle a little pull again, and then that closes up that center circle like so. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn our work, and then we're going to take our colour B. For me, this is this colour right here. And we're going to join with a slip stitch into any corner chain 2 space. So I'm going to create my slip knot and pop that on my hook. And then I'm going to go into one of these chain 2 spaces, yarn over, pull through, and then we have attached our yarn. I'm going to pull that round to the edge of the work. And now I'm going to begin my first granny set. So we're going to work a corner now, and the way that we work this corners is going to be the same throughout the square that you're making. So we'll start off with our first treble, which is a chain 3. So that chain 3 will again count as a treble crochet. And then work 2 treble crochets next to that chain 3. Now I'm working over that tail end as I'm doing this, just to capture that in the work. I do have a video, if you feel like you are a little bit more advanced, of how to do a granny square like this without having to sew in any ends. So if that interests you, I will leave a link just here and in the description box as well. But if you are an absolute beginner, then don't worry about that for now. That is something that you can add to your skill set later. So we've done our first granny set here. We're then going to chain 2 for the corner, And we're actually going to add another granny set into this corner space as well. So we're going to yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. That's 1, 2, and 3. So we have our 3 treble crochets. Now, what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, you can chain 1 in the corner if you want to, 2 in the corner, 3. It's really down to personal preference, so have a play around with that. But in this particular pattern, I am chaining 2 in the corners, and I am not doing any chains between the granny sets. I wanted to keep this particular pattern a little bit tighter, so we're not going to chain between those granny sets. What we are going to do is we're going to skip the next granny cluster, so skip the next 3 stitches, and we're going to work in the next corner chain 2 space again. So we're going to do 3 treble crochets, 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and then 3 trebles into that very same corner space. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to miss the next 3 stitches and work 3 trebles into that next corner chain 2 space. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 2 for the corner, and then work 3 trebles again into that same space. Now remember, if you're having trouble locating those corner spaces, because sometimes it can get confusing with these spaces here, you can go ahead and make sure that you're putting stitch markers in those stitches or in those chain 2s. So we're going to miss 3 stitches and work 3 trebles, 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and work 3 trebles, 1, 2, and 3. We're now going to join with a slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 from the beginning. So go into the top of that stitch, slip stitch, yarn over, pull through, fasten off the yarn, and pull out your hook. So that's our round 2. We're now going to turn the work for round 3. So I'm now taking my colour C and creating a slip knot, insert my crochet hook, and then again we're going to be joining with a slip stitch to any of the chain 2 corner spaces. So these chain 2 corner spaces here and here, or the ones that you've marked with a stitch marker. So we're going to insert and then pull through to join with a slip stitch, pull that round to the edge, and begin by chaining 3, which is going to count as our treble crochet, which is a US double crochet. We're now going to work our corner just as we have done here with 2 more trebles to create that granny set. So 1 and 2, and that creates our granny set of 3 trebles because this counts as a treble crochet. We'll chain 2 for the corner and then work 3 treble crochets into that same space. 2 and 3. Now this row is slightly different because we don't move straight across to the other corner. We have this space between the 2 granny sets just here. So what we're going to do is we're going to miss the next 3 stitches and we're going to work into this space between those granny sets, and we're going to work 3 treble crochets. 1, 2, and 3. Now when we move across to the next space, this is a corner space, so we're going to work our corner stitches, which is 3 treble crochets, 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and work 3 treble crochets into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. We're going to miss 3 stitches and work our granny set across the edge with 3 trebles, 1, 2, and 3. Miss 3 stitches and work a corner, so we have our 3 trebles, chain 2 for the corner, and then work 3 trebles, 1, 2, and 3. And we'll continue round in that way, so we'll do 3 trebles in that next space between granny sets, which is the edge of the square. Miss 3 stitches, and then this is our last corner. 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and 1, 2, and 3. We have one final space left, so we'll go straight into there with our granny set, which is our 3 trebles, and then we can go ahead and join with a slip stitch into the top of the chain 3. Yarn over and snip off the yarn, pull out your hook, and then we're going to go ahead and turn the work, grab colour D, make your slip knots, and go ahead and slip stitch into any of the corner chain 2 spaces. Pull that round again. And then this round is the round that gets repeated in the written pattern. So what we're going to do here is chain 3 to begin, which counts as our treble crochet, which is double crochet in US terms. We will work 2 treble crochets to complete that granny set. Chain 2 for the corner, and then work 3 trebles to create that second granny set in the corner chain 2 space. Now what we have is 2 spaces between granny sets before we get to the next corner, and each time you do this round you will have an additional space between each of the corners. So this is what we're going to do for the rest of the pattern. So we're going to work our 3 trebles into that next space between the granny sets, and then miss 3 stitches and go straight over into that next space and work 3 trebles. And then here we have the corner space again, so we'll work our corner as we have been doing previously. So our 3 trebles into that corner space, chain 2, and then 3 trebles into that same space. 1, 2, and 3. And then again, we're going to skip 3 stitches and work in that space between the granny sets. Skip 3 stitches and work 3 trebles again. Skip 3 stitches and then work the corner. 1, 2 and 3, chain 2 and 3 trebles into that very same corner chain 2 space. So we're about halfway round now. We'll continue working between those granny sets with our 3 treble crochets. And move across again. Once you get into the swing of it, it's fairly easy. And as the square grows, you get to see the corner spaces a little bit easier as well. Chain 2 and work 3 trebles into that corner space. We're on our final edge now, so just move those tail ends out the way, and we're going to do 3 trebles in that next space. And 3 trebles in that next space. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch into the top of that chain 3, like so. So from this point forward, you can repeat that round, working through your colour sequence. So my next colour would be this colour, and then I would keep growing it until we get to the amount of rows which is required. So for my mermaid shells blanket, I have actually done 39 rows up to this last row here. And I stopped on this colour, so I stopped on colour D, and then I added my border. But you can obviously make this as big or as small as you like. I'm going to stop on this round 4 of my sample piece for you so that I can demonstrate this border. But again, you can do this in whichever colour you like, or you can copy exactly what I've done and finish on round 29 in order to do the border. So let's go ahead and see how to do that. So when you're ready to do your border, you are not going to fasten off your yarn. Instead, what you're going to do is continue by joining with a slip stitch, as we have done here. We're not going to turn our work. What we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into that next treble crochet in this first granny set of the corner. Now what that should do is take you to that center treble of that granny set, and then we're going to begin by chaining 3, 1, 2, 3, just move that out of the way, and that is classing as our first treble crochet. What we want to do here is add a further 3 treble crochets into that same stitch. So 1, 2 and 3, and that's created our first shell, which will become more apparent when we add more to this. So now that brings us to the corner chain 2 space, and what we're going to do in there is slip stitch into that space. We're then going to skip the next treble crochet, and again working into that center treble crochet of the granny set, we're going to work 4 treble crochets. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. We'll find that space between the 2 granny sets and we'll slip stitch into that space. And you can see better here that has created our shell because it pulls down those 2 edge trebles. And that's what we're going to do all the way around. We're going to miss this next treble crochet and work 4 trebles into the center treble of that granny set. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Miss a treble and work into the space. Miss a treble and work 4 treble crochets into that center treble. Three and 4. Miss a treble and slip stitch. And then we get to the corner, so again we're going to work 4 trebles into the center treble of that next granny set. 3 and 4, but this time we don't have the space between the granny sets. We actually have the corner space, but we still treat this exactly the same by doing a slip stitch into that corner space, missing the next treble and working 4 treble crochets into that next stitch. 1, 2, 3 and 4, and slip stitch into that next space. And you're simply going to do that all the way around. So go ahead, pause the video, work your way around until you've done your last 4 trebles in the last granny set, and then meet me back once you're ready. So now you've worked your way around, we're going to do our last slip stitch into this last space here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to find the top of the chain 3 and slip stitch into that last stitch to pull that down like so, and we can go ahead and fasten off and pull out our yarn. And then all that would be left to do is sew in our ends. So you just want to make sure that obviously if you're using this as a blanket, these are really nice and secure. So what I like to do with that very center tail end is weave the opposite way to what we've tightened it to, and then go back the opposite way again, just to really make sure that that is sewn in well. Just going to go back one more time and then fasten off, and then we can do the same with these tail ends as well. I like to use the rule of 3 and work in between different fibres to make sure that it's really nice and secure. So we'll go one way, back the other way, weaving in and out the fibres. I like to also go underneath the granny sets as well, just to disguise it a little bit more, and then back the opposite way. Again, trying to catch different fibres before I snip off. So you want to go ahead and do that for all of your tail ends. And then you will have your beautiful mermaid shells blanket. And as I say, you can customize this to whatever you like with your colour preferences and your colour changes. You can just follow the pattern and change colours wherever you like. And this little version actually makes a really cute coaster, although I would recommend using cotton yarn for a coaster. And if you really like this video and you want to know how to make a multicolored granny square without having to sew in your ends, I really recommend watching this video right here.